So when they go up in their aeroplanes, this here is always, the horizon is always at eye level, always. You never have to look down like this. You look out of an aeroplane and you never have to look down to see the falling away of the earth way, 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 way over there, anywhere around you. It's always, always around you. So even though the horizon is flat, which it is, what they're seeing, it'll be straight, it'll go straight, 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 and then it'll actually curve like this a little bit, very, very subtly, very subtly. But that's not because the earth is not flat. That's because your eyes are pulling this back down now, because your range, you're here, and as you look out, your range will come down the horizon to meet you. It's like you won't, if you look down the end of a road, you will never see all the telephone wire poles. You won't see them because they're all condensed and they're all sucked into the vanishing point. But they're there. So they're not seeing fall, what you call fall curvature. They are seeing curvature, circular curvature. You see?
It's interesting, like when you mention all the telephone poles, you look from afar like that. Imagine looking up into the sky, how limited we are from everything that's up there, what we can actually see. You know, because if we were looking that far and we're seeing the road come to a vantage point, looking up at how big the sky is, it just kind of makes sense that we're only limited to a certain sector of that sky. You know, we're not good because we are limited. Like you said, our eyes are limited.
Yes. Yeah. So, so eventually they'll work it out. They will have to work it out. They just can't keep repeating like parrots, stupid indoctrinations. The people, the elite families that manufactured the globe, I've got all the names here. These are the people. In the 1500s, you had three guys. Pietro Pomponazzi, Gasparo Contarini, and Francesco Giorgi. They funded Kepler and Copernicus, Jesuits. They also started the Protestant Reformation and the Counter-Reformation. They also were the protectors of Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, who founded the Jesuits 2 years before Copernicus released his, or should I say the Jesuits released their Santa Bull. Yeah. And globalism and everything, and the onslaught of globalism 2 years after. So we've got, funny, 1541 Jesuits founded. 1543 Copernicus and his Santa Ball. That's the Santa Ball, man. That's about how real the ball Earth is. Anyway, these guys, they also started the Council of Trent. Now, if you know anything about the Council of Trent, guys, in the 1500s, you will know that what the Catholic Church did then was the greatest evil the earth. It was the most evil council in history, man. That's where they started momentum in their global pursuits, and they went to China, Japan, Australia, Americas. Well, the Americas were already 70 years discovered, you know, in what do we got? 1492. The last papal bull was done in 1539, and that papal bull was called Convocation. So in 1539, the third papal bull, Convocation, and two other papal bulls from the 1400s make the three Sestui V bulls of history. So look at what happened. The final bull, papal bull to enslave mankind, was written, called Convocation, in 1539. Then they started the Jesuits. Then Copernicus all within 5 years. So the bull of enslavement, convocation, the Jesuits of enslavement, and the globe of enslavement, all in 5 years. Now let me just check when the Council of Trent was.
Yeah, so forget about the higher intelligence at work for the globe. It's a bunch of globe darts together that put that up together and decide that it was going to be the reality.
Okay, you want to know the dates for the Council of Trent, guys? Yeah, 1545.
Yeah.
That's it.
1545. So from here, it's a bit like 1913. 1912, the Titanic sank. 1913, the Federal Reserve was implemented. 1914, the First World War. 1917, the Bolshevik communist invasion of the world. 4 major aberrations that destroyed the last century. They deliberately sank the Titanic so that they could get rid of Astor and the other rich guys that were opposing the Federal Reserve. 1913, Federal Reserve. 1914, World War. 1915, other disasters. I think the Balfour Agreement, they destroyed Turkey, the Middle East. Then they went for Russia, destroyed Russia. This was all done by the Vatican and Wall Street, okay, and the Zionists. Now, this is a similar period in history, guys. Take note. I'll go through these details again so we don't forget them. And then I'll mention to you, show you all the names that were involved in the Santa Bull. So you've got 1539, guys, convocation, the final Sestwi KV trust. Sestwi KV. Sestwi KV. It is you that is living. The trusts, the papal bull trusts, that was it. Then the Jesuits, 2 years later. Then Copernicus, 2 years later. Then the Council of Trent, 2 years later. You see it, how all these things happen? So these guys, Pietro Pomponazzi, Gasparo Contarini, who was a cardinal in Milan, Francesco Giorgi, they all protected Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, Copernicus, and Kepler. Try and keep these details in your mind, guys, because this is the ammunition you need to prove and show that this is a conspiracy, not the other way around. Then in the 1600s, so we've done the 1500s, then in the 1600s we have 2 more guys. We have Paolo Sarpi and Fulgencio Micancio. And they were Servite monks, and they were Jesuits, they funded Galileo, okay, with his Humpty Dumpty globe. Then in the 1700s, we have another couple of Jesuits, Abbot Antonio Conti and Juan Maria Ortez. They funded Newton and the gravity. So Galileo was the globe, Newton was gravity, the gravity globe, and Copernicus and Kepler, 100 years prior, started the fiction off in all of this time. And they started the religion of materialism or utilitarianism, and they were the enemies of Godfrey Wilhelm Leibniz, who was the true discoverer of calculus, not Newton. And Newton and the Jesuits were, you remember the fire of London and everything, and then Newton comes out with gravity after the fire of London of 1666. And that was when they went full speed ahead with the globe because they had gravity now. They destroyed Leibniz's career. He was a true scientist preaching flat earth. And then they introduced subtly and slowly their one world globalism concept through the globe, their false idol.
What about the
drink?
Yeah,
Keep talking, I'll just grab a drink.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do have a question. After hearing all of that about our history, are they currently doing something at the moment? Because it feels like there's a bit of manipulation happening and a lot of confusion happening. Are they creating, or is there something else being created to design a new concept and structure Is anyone else seeing that or feeling
enslave
that?
the humanity, you mean, or?
Yeah, that just confuse us. Yeah, enslave us. You know, it just feels like a lot of what has been happening is very trickster-like. You know,
Okay.
it's mind over matter. So we're just going to trick people.
Well, like I've even
Go ahead.
seeing you guys ever watch Alex Jones's video, or even like Joe Rogan, like the Joe Rogan podcast, and he had Alex Jones on there, and basically Alex Jones thought that it was what the elite are. It's like an infiltration of this interdimensional kind of stuff. You know, it's like I don't think we'll ever really know what's happening, you know, because it's like when you hear that, it's like crazy. But what if, you know, we're conditioned to think if it was something like that, that's absolutely out of your mind. But like, that's the whole thing about it, because maybe it's really crazier than we could ever imagine how they do what they do, or whoever they are, really, you know.
Yeah, but what they do is something we do to us also. We do that to ourselves by not waking up. It's a choice that I took to wake up. Nobody came to knock at my door, say, Yannick, you want to wake up? There's something great out there. So it's a choice to wake up. Yeah. So to say that they control us and that they have you know, power over us and stuff, it's just because we let go of the power. We let them have power, because look, the moment that you start thinking for yourself, what happened, you end up on YouTube and you start the Tru Mon Show. So so they don't have power that much over us. It's up to us to regain the power together. But most of us are sleeping, living dead, zombified. So this is what's happening.
Yeah.
You know, we're getting out of that zombified state slowly, but we need a certain number of people. Man is an island. I can yap here, make a million videos on YouTube. If nobody gets on board, what's the point?
It seems like a lot of self-reflection. You know, you hear those that are like, oh, it's the me generation, just me, all about me. When really that means it's the age of, you know,
that's it. But we do that to ourselves.
It means reflecting on yourself and waking up in your
self-discovery.
own ways. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they make it seem like it's like a narcissistic generation now, and everybody's obsessed with themselves. Yeah, maybe a bit, but I think it's more a self-reflecting thing happening more so than ever.
More understanding who we are as a species and what the goal is. Like, you know, we want to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
I missed that question there, Melissa. Can you repeat it?
Oh, it was just talking about how, you know, you discussing about what's happened in history and how there's been certain events that have created this, you know, concept and these storylines and ideas. I feel like there's a new one being put into place right now. And, you know, I guess the question to you was, do you see this? Do you feel this? Do you have an idea what could be happening? Just a discussion on that.
Age of Aquarius thing, something like that. The knowledge that's being poured on us.
Yeah,
well, the elite are definitely trying to set up a new order. They've always had orders. They've always had their, you know, their special institutions in place to, you know, route man's, you know, progress and monitor it and check it and control it. So they are trying to establish another economical system, another governance system, another way of controlling all commercial transactions. They will keep doing that for sure. But things have changed. You know, we have the internet now. We can see what they're doing. They've been exposed at a quicker rate than ever before. It's more transparent. The way things have set up now, the transparency is just impossible for, you know, evil ones to continue with their mechanisms of enslavement. But like you said, Yannick, we are the ones who basically just lie down and let these ones control us. We should be mastering now the techniques of ignoring these creeps and we should be creating our own reality and just truly getting on with our lives and just ignoring their systems of control. It's easy to do. It's very easy. For one, you have the right, you have rights, and they can't take that away from you. So if you establish your rights, every transaction that you do with policemen and all of these goons that work for the demonic slave system, just don't contract and just retain your silence. Just ask the question, do I have the right to remain silent? They will have to say yes, and you will have to just take that option and never answer a question after that. And the next thing that should come out of your mouth is, I don't answer questions. I don't answer questions. I don't answer questions. There's a guy on YouTube who does that. It's called, he just calls his video channel, I think, I don't answer questions. And he shows how you get, you go through toll stops, how you go through, police check stops, and they just can't touch you because they cannot join their operation to a living being. They must create joinder to the copyright person that they own, which is your full name, what they call the full name. You should never give people your full name. For a start, you don't give anyone your name. You tell them your name. You do not give it. So when a policeman asks you to give
me your name.
Yeah, you give him nothing. You say, I will tell you my
name.
And all you have to tell, all you're required to tell by legally and lawfully, all you are required to tell them is your name. And in my case, that's Santo. It's not Bonacci because that's not a given name. I have one given name, and that is Santo. So you can give that as your given name. They will always ask you, is that your first name or your second name? Never own a first or a second name. Never. You have a Christian given name. You don't have a first name and you don't have a second name. That's for dogs. That's under their Justinian law code. That's for the dogs, okay? So when they say, what's your second name? Well, if you do have a middle name, and I wouldn't call it a middle name, I would just call it my other given name, my other Christian given name. So if you're dealing Christian names and given names, they can't own that because they don't own that. I own Santo, that's my given name. I don't own Bonacci because that is a surety name. Surname, surety name. So if you're stupid enough to say Santo Bonacci, well, then you're in contract immediately, and you can't ignore them now because they've got you engaged. And now you won't be able, you're in a contract, and you have to get yourself out of that now. They'll probably take you to a judge, and then you'll have to start the process again. Okay? So, okay, if you want to comply and be a peaceful inhabitant, so you're not combative or a hostile, which is how they'll treat you, you give them the name. Bruce, Tom. And you are now fulfilling the law because that is the name that you were given, and it's also the name that's on the birth certificate which you own. And they can't take that. So it's all about knowing how to deal with these goons. If they try to force you to use their copyright name, well, that's intimidation, and that's coercion, and that's force, and they can get into trouble. They can go to jail for that because they are not entitled to use the name, and neither are you. It's crown copyright. And so you have to be careful when you're using someone else's property. So, you might want to ask if you might say, is it lawful for me to speak about someone that I don't recognize? I don't recognize that person. I'm Santo. I don't recognize Santo Bonacci. I don't recognize it. You don't have to recognize it. They can't force you to recognize it. If you don't recognize it, it means there's no recognition and they can't join you to it. So you can ask the question, is it lawful for me to use a name that I haven't copyrighted? That's not my property. Okay? So there's many ways of getting around that and ignoring them.
Yeah, because that's another way we give them power. You know, we give them power so much. We give them our name. We sign our nature away on every document. It's crazy that we're not conscious. We're so unconscious of our actions until we wake up and start realizing what's our everyday life is all about. We're very unconscious, and that's very, yeah. Anyway. I think it's deep unconsciousness or normal unconsciousness. I might be in the normal unconsciousness, me. I'm waking up, I'm awakening, but I'm still, I still have lots of stuff to. It's a long journey, and it's life. It's a long journey.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight.
Doesn't happen overnight, and but the good thing is we are awakening now. Santos, I want to talk to you about something else about the Bible. And that's someone also that posts a question in the chat about the Bible. There's a lot of truth in the Bible, if you want to say. They're hidden truth. Not really hidden. It's coded. It's in plain sight, whatever you want to say it. But what's your take on all the religious book and the truth that's in there? And why do they put it in there when they could hide it? That was the question in the chat.
Yeah, okay. So the Bible, Quran, Srimad Bhagavatam, all of these books are full of transcendental truth. They don't have any mundane historical fact in them, although they use mundane historical facts in its process of teaching. Okay, so for instance, in the Bible it talks about Persia, Babylon, Greece, and Rome, and these are factual empires that have occurred in the period of history. Well, how does this happen then? So people, point to that and claim evidence of historicity, whereas that's not how it works. All the books, all the sacred books, they've been around, they're timeless. They weren't written 1,000 years, 2,000, 3,000 years ago at all. They were redacted back then. Schools actually that were protecting those ancient timeless documents. Some are in Egypt, some in India, some in Greece, some in Rome. The schools that had the protection of those sacred documents. Well, when empire comes, so when Rome comes, they grab the Gospels, redact them to the Roman time period, and now it looks like everything in the Bible happened around about that time. Well, no, that's just Rome's version of the Bible. The Bible has much, much greater antiquity. In fact, no one really knows who wrote the Bible. They say Moses, but Moses is Hermes. Hermes is, well, it's a bit like the Greeks, Homer, Hermes. No one knew who these guys were because they weren't guys. They were whoever grabbed the stylus and the inkhorn and the pen and wrote inspirational documents. That was Hermes, that was Moses. So it was like Pharaoh. There's not one Pharaoh. Pharaoh means every king of Egypt has that title. Herod, it's the same thing. So we're not looking. Moses is more of a title than a name. It's the title of Mercury, Buddha, Thoth, Hermes, the first of the planets, and the one who is close to the sun, and the one who is basically communicating what the sun wants to communicate to us. Okay, so all of those books, even though they've been redacted, butchered, and they've been changed somewhat, they all still contain the ancient secret truths. And they are anagogic, esoteric, occult, transcendent. There's nothing in there that is literal. Even some of the churchgoers will tell you, oh, the book of Revelation is symbolical. Well, they got it right. It is. It's symbols. And so the Bible is using symbols everywhere. But even when it appears to be using history, like Caesar Augustus sent out a decree that all the world should be registered, and the censorship of Caesar Augustus, which occurred when Jesus was born. Hence, he went from Nazareth, where he comes from, and his mother Mary and Joseph took him to Bethlehem before he was born, and he was born in Bethlehem. That was supposedly, they went there to register themselves because Caesar Augustus started one of the first census registrations in the history of the Roman Empire. Well, this is very clever. This is very clever. You get these clever churchgoers, you know, who will say, oh, well, you see, there it is there. There's Caesar Augustus and Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Yes, that's clever redacting. It's not fact, and it's not even truth, because the Egyptians did this 2,000 years ago, only they called Jesus Horus, and Satan they called Set. And then the Persians did it with Mithras and Mazda and Ahura Mazda. And the Chinese have got their, and the American Indians have got Viracocha, Quetzalcoatl, and all of their sun gods. And so, you know, in India it's Krishna and Vivasvan, or Surya, the sun god. It's all the same stuff. And so those Gospels, no one knows who wrote them, and they weren't written in this temporal age, not at all. They have always been there. They've always been guarded and protected. They are timeless. They are like the manuals that come in your car, in your glove box, in your compartment box there. You pull out when your car, you know, needs maintenance, you go to the manual. That's exactly what these books are like. The creator, here we go. Let's have a look at who the creator is, shall we?
Because there's the books that we have, but there's also hidden books inside the Vatican Library that we don't have access to. So what is all this too? That's a good question. What is in there? What is in the Vatican? What do they hide?
Probably so many different
What
books,
do they hide in those books that they don't put in the Bible? Like, it's very intriguing for me. There's like miles long of highs of book. What is in there?
Yeah. You'd love to know, wouldn't you?
Oh man, I would love to go in there.
All I want to do is see Palfrey's books on astrology. Palfrey was the greatest Neoplatonist, lived in the 3rd century, and his teacher was Plotinus, but Plotinus was not an astrologer, so he was not a syncretist. The syncretists of that age were Palfrey and Iamblichus, and Iamblichus, we do have his... I do have his great work on the Chaldean mysteries. There it is, Iamblichus on the mysteries. Now, can you see that? Iamblichus, okay? Yeah. Iamblichus. This is the guy that Julian the Apostate, the greatest emperor of Rome in 360, he said that Iamblichus was the greatest of all the minds of men, greater than Plato, greater than Pythagoras. So here we have the nephew of Constantine the Great, 60 years after that blasphemous corporate Church of St. Peter was founded. And here we have his nephew who brought Rome back to the ancient solar Gnostic religion and saved Rome from the stupidity of corporate Christianity. But then, of course, Justinian turns up 100 years later, and Theodosius, and basically they burned the libraries in Alexandria. They shut down the Neoplatonic schools in Greece, in Alexandria, in Egypt, and in Rome. Justinian shut down all the academies of Neoplatonism in the year 529. Okay? So, they burned all of Palfrey's astrological books. We still have Palfrey's house system in astrology down to this day. We still respect Palfrey's whatever he knew. But he had, I think, 20 volumes of astrology, the most complete and comprehensive astrological treatise in the history of man, and they were burned. He also wrote about vegetarianism. He was a vegetarian. Of course, all the Neoplatonists were. And they were all teaching this stuff. Palfrey would have been teaching astrology the way I do, on the ecliptic, on the sine wave. And that's why all his books were burned. Palfrey, the Great, my favorite of all.
I had a quick question. When you mention all the people teaching this stuff, they're all vegetarian now. Why vegetarian and not vegan? I mean, if you think, because I just think if you're a vegetarian, you could still drink milk, but like, what about ingesting stuff that's still not good for you in the sense of like how it's made? You know, like why vegetarianism? Why not vegan when that's seen as the most purest form of eating, I guess you could say?
Well, like, I think, in my opinion, I use those two interchangeably. Vegetarian just is the separation mark between the two worlds. Okay, veganism is superior to vegetarianism because it does not allow for any animal to suffer. But then again, you know, the ancient cultures, they all had their own cow, their own lamb, chickens. They loved their animals. They did not eat their animals. They were vegetarian, but they used the animals for meat, like it says in the Bible, not to eat, but for meat. In that you can use,
like still make milk and
their feathers, you can use their wool, you can use their milk to make cheese. There's nothing wrong with cheese. You know, if it's untraumatized cows and it's organic, you don't have to go that one step further to be a vegan. I am.
Right.
I don't have any of that stuff, but you don't have to, as long as you're not killing sentient beings.